Driving, music's blaring in my ears.
Hi, welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name's David Unger, and I'm pleased to be hosting a show with executive directors and key people of local nonprofits. I've worked in the nonprofit world for over 30 years, and in those years I've realized the majority of the community does not know how the organizations that provide so many critical services to our community really operate. The only time they really hear from nonprofits is when they get the appeal letter asking them for money. This is a chance to hear about the organizations in our community that touch so many people in so many different ways. The opinions expressed on Nonprofit Insider are not necessarily those of WMPG, its staff, underwriters, or USM. Last week I announced that Susan Greenwood was going to be with us today, but unfortunately Susan had to switch spots, and today we have Melanie Sachs, Executive Director of the Freeport Community Services. Hi, Melanie.
Hi there, David. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Terrific. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So, one of the key questions I like to ask is, what is the Freeport Community Services?
Freeport Community Services is an amazing organization in Freeport, Maine.
Are you sure it's amazing?
It is amazing.
Okay.
And the reason it is amazing is it's very unique. We've been around for about 40 years. It's our 40th birthday this year.
And you've been there all 40 years?
I would like to think I have been, but no. I've been a volunteer for many years and just became the executive director back July 1st of this year.
So you're a newbie.
I am a newbie in every possible wonderful way. So Freeport Community Services provides select direct services to meet some emergency needs, such as food and fuel assistance, as well as some emergency power and things like that, furniture, clothing for people in need. We also provide an opportunity for volunteers to come and give back to the community in that way. And the last thing we do is link people to resources, either within our own community or in the greater community.
Oh, that's a great mission. I interrupted you, and I apologize. You started telling us about your 40th.
Yes, it's our 40th birthday this year. So it's exciting because for some people, they call it the heart of Freeport. You often think of Freeport as only a retail community, but it is a community of neighbors and of really strong history of giving back to one another. And Freeport Community Services started back in the day. There were probably 13 or so shoe factories in our community.
Freeport had shoe factories?
Shoe factories, and a lot of really hardworking people on the waterfront. So back in the 80s, there was a pretty strong working community that also was affected by the fires that we had in downtown Freeport. So the whole landscape of Freeport really changed. We were also far enough from the county seat of Portland, so to speak, that services in Cumberland County didn't often extend far enough up to Freeport and Pownell, which is the neighboring community we also serve. So Freeport Community Services started in a garage, just like Apple, by the way, David. It started,
or some of the other ones.
Or some of the other terrific, not to drop any names, but just like many other companies, they started in a garage to say, what do we need? And that's still been the core of the mission of Freeport Community Services, is neighbor helping neighbor. What are the needs of the community, and how can we best meet them?
Do you know you have something, the Freeport Community Services has something very much in common with WMPG?
How is that?
You both are celebrating 40th birthdays this year.
I was aware of that.
Ours was Wednesday.
Landmark days.
And that was quite a celebration we had here.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to doing it all year long. We've started a little bit during our White Nights. Our signature celebration was January 25th. One of our signature celebrations was White Nights. Then we have our food and fuel freeze out in February, where we literally stand outside for 24 hours to remind people that some people don't have the choice but to be outside for 24 hours plus in the cold. And then we have some other celebrations moving on all the way through the year.
You had mentioned that Freeport being a retail community, but you have a thrift shop.
We do. It's interesting.
How does that blend in? I mean, how do you compete with the outlets?
Well, the nice thing is it's not really a competition. We're really, really blessed that we have community support, not only from locals as well as from businesses, because people fall through the cracks no matter where you live. And the nice thing about Freeport Community Services is we are one of the very low barrier agencies. Really, all we ask is that you live in Freeport or Pownell. And if you come in and say, I have a need, we do our best to meet it. Even if you come from another community community oftentimes will be able to assist in some way. And the nice thing about having what used to be called the clothes tree, it's been there for most of the years of our existence, the thrift shop, and now we have a furniture annex as well up on Main Street and West Street, is that we have the ability that if people are in need, we have those resources right there. For example, unfortunately, Freeport experienced 6 house fires between December and January, between Christmas Eve this past year and January. You may have seen those in the news.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is people know we're there. So I was getting calls at home saying, oh, by the way, unfortunately, another one happened. And we were able to bring people in within 24 hours to say, here's furniture, here's food, here's clothing. And so people know when they give to Freeport Community Services, it goes right back out to the community.
Now, you had mentioned that you have a lot of volunteers. So how many volunteers do you think you have?
Well, we know we have about, on our books right now, 630 volunteers.
Active volunteers?
Active volunteers. I would say probably the last count that we had was about 92 of them are what are considered special projects.
Okay.
So if we have a massive food drive or if we have a one-off sort of a white nights celebration or something like that, they're often very targeted volunteers who like to do special events. But, for example, our thrift shop has 96 hours of volunteer time that we ask a week of our volunteers. Now, we don't ask you, David, to come in for all 96 hours. But our volunteers tell us it is a place of joy. It is a place to come back where you can give as much or as little time as you have. If you're a snowbird and you're here for a few months in the summertime, we welcome you, and then you go to Arizona or Florida, and then you come back. So we're very, very blessed to have as many volunteers as we do.
So I have to share a secret with you.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit with you in your office.
Yes. Was that a secret? Yeah.
No, that wasn't the secret. But the secret was I never told you my feelings and my perception of what I saw there.
Okay.
When you walk in, it's very open. It's very airy. It's very clean. There's coffee available right in the front, so people don't have to go around looking for it. The thrift shop was open and inviting, and people were going in and out. But you know what caught me the most?
What was that?
The people were just in the hallway playing cribbage.
Yes.
Okay. And having run organizations like Freeport Community Center and other communities, it's always we have to put them in this room away from everything. Mm-hmm. But this was out in the open, and you could see the participation of the citizens in the community right there. Mm-hmm. And it really felt inclusive.
Yeah. I think you've touched on what I believe makes Freeport Community Center unique so it is a center for the community. And within that center, we have different organizations who rent space. One is the Freeport Elders, who are playing cribbage that day. Downstairs, there's the Port Teen Center, which is run by the school department. In another part of the building, we have the Greater Freeport Community Chamber of Commerce. And then we also have Freeport Conservation Trust, which is an environmental organization. So we have all of these amazing other nonprofit agencies right under one roof. And it's intergenerational and it's collaborative. So you have different interests which are not competing but actually have a really great synergy.
Right.
And so at the same time, so we often say that there is a place for everyone at Freeport Community Center because when you walk in our doors, you don't know if I'm there for a business meeting. I could be there to volunteer at the thrift store. I could be there to receive food from the pantry. I could be having a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, or I could do all of those things in 1 week. And that's the beauty of Freeport Community Services. And have a cup of coffee and learn how to play cribbage at the same time.
Yeah. Even when you walk down Depot Street, you could see, that you've kept the buildings so individualized, mm-hmm. and the whole connection of the building is in the back.
Right.
And but I do have a complaint.
Okay.
I was there one time during the winter, and you had that hockey game going on next door. I almost got hit by a puck.
They do. They did.
You need to put a fence up there.
Yes, they do. The town of Freeport, we're very lucky that Linda Bean, who owns that parking lot right next to us, granted the town of Freeport to have a hockey rink right next there. So that's really great for kids to be able to go free.
Absolutely. So I have a lot of other questions, but before that, I have a trivia question for you.
Okay.
Okay. And I have not shared this question with her at all, and she has no idea what the answer might be. You ready?
Ready?
What percent of the country's toothpick supply is produced in Maine? And
Wow.
just think about that for a second, and we're going to go on break. And this is Nonprofit Insider with David Unger on WMPG. And today I'm talking with Melanie Sachs, the Executive Director of the Freeport Community Center. And she is now going to tell me the answer to the trivia question. What percentage of toothpicks are produced in Maine?
You know, it's a hard question for me because I'm from Central Maine. I grew up in New Sharon, very close to Foster's in Wilton, which used to make the toothpicks.
Then you better get this right.
So I'm going to say it's a high percentage just based on that. I'm going to say something like 80%.
90. But
90%. Okay, don't disown me, Mount Blue High School and that
All
area
right.
where I grew up.
All right. So tell me what it's like being a new executive director.
Well, I'm excited because I get to work for Freeport Community Services. Frankly, I think it's one of the best agencies
What's
around.
the biggest surprise you had? I'm switching gears on you.
The biggest surprise I have is, which is not really a surprise, it's more of a confirming something you knew. I was a volunteer for Freeport Community Services for many years before I actually joined the staff. And I have to say the level of love and commitment for this agency is really astonishing. I see pretty much everybody in Freeport sometime during the month. And like I said, because it's a place for everybody, they come in a different. And you sort of knew that when you know, as a volunteer, but when you actually work there and get to see it, I'm truly astonished at the level of commitment that people have and the deep feeling that they have for this agency.
What are some of the issues that you think the Freeport Community Services have, and how does that relate to what you see other nonprofits having?
Well, of course, for all of us, it would be funding, right? You want to make sure.
Everybody says
Everybody
that.
says that. It would be resources because because there are so many great nonprofits out there, and because there's so many organizations competing not only for people's treasure, right? The time, talent, and treasure. So people have only so much time to give. So that's why we really value our volunteers, because we know that the time that they give is so precious. That's often more precious sometimes than their other resources. So, of course, the biggest challenge is going to be resources, I would say. For us, we also do straddle. We're very unique in that we provide those direct services, but we're also a community center open 6 days a week. I was there at 7 in the morning. We have an event there all the way through 7 o'clock tonight. So to balance those direct services with the greater community need.
And you have a very small paid staffing structure.
Very small paid staff. There's only 4 of us who are full-time, and then we have several part-time people that range anywhere from 8 hours to 25. So we're really lean, as many nonprofits are.
So are you tying any fundraising activities into the 40th?
We've only started, we've talked about the 40th, of course, during the several funding events, fundraiser events that we've done. We actually are in our September 26th, we're having a big 40th birthday celebration this year. And it's less about fundraising, although, of course, we always welcome that. But we're also inviting people to give us their memories. Again, the feeling that people have about Freeport Community Services really does span, for some people, all 40 years. They really have invested a lot. So we want to find those untold stories of how they helped. We literally, David, had a young woman walk in about a month ago who really epitomizes what Freeport Community Services is. Of course, the office, as you observed the other day, was busy, people coming in and out. Where do I find this? How can I do that? And this one woman hung back a little bit. She was a younger woman in her 20s. And she said to Kim Hudak, who's the long-term executive assistant there, who's amazing, and had said, I don't want anything, Kim. She almost started that way. I don't want anything. I just wanted to tell you thank you. Freeport Community Services helped my mom and me a few years ago out of a really tight spot. And I just had to come back and say thank you. She didn't give her name, no more details, gave Kim a hug, and left. That's why we do what we do. Literally.
But let's go back, because you kind of dodged this one question.
What?
Yes. What was the biggest surprise as a new executive director that you found in running an organization?
Oh, and running the organization. So the biggest surprise I had found was the depth of feeling. I think I was pretty clear.
Right,
I mean,
right,
that's a
right.
pretty amazing thing
But
and
let's
a great
talk about
surprise.
organizational pieces.
But organizational pieces. For me, probably the bringing all of these different elements together. You had talked about that a little bit in your past experience in nonprofits, integrating the many parts. Because Freeport Community Services really does mean something different to every single person who comes in that door. For some, it is, I'd like to rent a room so that I can have my 50th anniversary party there. For some people, it is the food pantry. For some people, it is the camp scholarship program that we do or the Read to Succeed program that we do. So integrating each one as an important piece for that person or for that program. Integrating those many needs with scarce resources is a real challenge as well as a bit of a surprise of all of the different things we do.
So if you had a perfect world scenario and someone would walk in with a blank check, what would that amount be that you'd ask for to do everything you need to do?
To do everything we need to do?
Yeah.
Well, I would say one of the nice things we're doing is looking to the future. We just established an endowment.
Oh, great.
So it's a fairly new concept for Freeport Community Services. So I would say that it would be $1 million endowment. You know why? Because it's about the future. Because we don't, up to a certain amount, we don't invest, we don't touch the principal, we only invest the interest on it. And so that would make sure that Freeport Community Services would keep going forever.
I am so surprised and amazed that there are so many nonprofits out there still who do not have any endowment program.
Right.
Or even plans of doing it. We just need to survive day to day.
Right.
And they don't look at it from the future. And, planning and planned giving with your donors is really an extremely important concept.
Right.
And I wish more folks would grab onto that.
Right. And it's an exciting concept because many people do want to have a legacy. And they have been invested in Freeport Community Services for so long. And I think it is, I have an amazing board of directors who are very committed to seeing this move forward again for the next 40 years and even 40 beyond that, to say, how can we keep this legacy going? And I think an endowment, which is an important piece of that. And like every nonprofit, we struggle with, okay, we just established the endowment. And so we'd like to gently and supportively talk about that. But like you said, looking at our day-to-day shoestring operation and not wanting to have any competing interests with that. Because both, as you said, are equally as important.
If you were to give a new executive director some advice, what would that one tidbit be that you would pass on to them?
Breathe. No. It's okay. It's been there for 40 years. It'll still be there for 40 years. What I did, and I would recommend this to everybody, is just listen. I'm a clinical social worker by training. I have been for 20 years. And listening to my staff who has been there, I'm, again, very blessed. I have the best staff in the world. Many of them have been there for 8 years, much longer than I have. So listening to the staff, listening to the long-term volunteers who, again, have been there for, some of our volunteers have been there for 25 years of the 40 or 40 years. Listening to what they have to say is really, really important because they'll tell you what you need. Just like it used to be with my clients, they'll tell me the direction we need to go. They'll tell me the opportunities and the challenges within the organization.
Right.
So taking that time and not thinking you have to fix everything all at once.
And that's really good. The other thing is when I took my first executive position, one of my past presidents of the organization brought me into his office and said, be very clear on expectations. Mm-hmm. Make sure the expectations are very understandable and and that everybody's in agreement, because if everybody's rowing in the same way, then it's going to make a big, big difference. So, have you ever heard of Music Partners of Falmouth?
I haven't.
You have?
I have not, no.
You not?
No.
Well, they greatly...
I'd like to hear more.
Well, they just called. And they greatly appreciate your wonderful staff, the inviting space, the great piano, and Kim is wonderful. The way you provide space to local churches at cost, and and the cost is not prohibitive for rehearsals or concerts. So they are so grateful for you.
Now I know who you're talking about. I didn't know that they were called Music Partners of Falmouth, though. I didn't realize that was their name. I have to tell you, one of the nice things about being in a community center is the arts component of it.
Right.
We had this wonderful donor who gave us this beautiful piano.
This must be this piano.
And that they're talking about. And we, for example, we do First Fridays concerts. We have the Bowdoin International Music Festival comes. The West Custico Youth Choir comes. Now and then during the Freeport Elders potluck, somebody will just get on the piano and do some things.
Don't tell her I said this, but maybe you can get Dale Robin to come and play the banjo for you.
We love that. So
That's our secret.
Arts and the music, the Freeport Players, who are celebrating their 25th anniversary, have been long-term partners with us as well. They've done performances there, so we're as much of an art space as anything else. It's really a wonderful venue.
Well, I think that if you haven't seen the Freeport Community Services, next time you're up in Freeport doing what you usually do in Freeport, you definitely need to stop in and say hello. It's very, very inviting. If you had to pick one program that would be your showcase program that you're most proud of, what would it be? And I know you're going to get flack when you get back for not picking the other one.
You know I am. So should I mention like 10 other ones first? Well, it could be this, or, it could be our fuel program. It could be our food pantry. It could be our Read to Succeed program. But I'm going to pick our Camp Scholarship program.
Okay.
And the reason why is, again, we believe it's unique in that it's been going on for 20 plus years. We have wonderful partnerships with so many camps around Maine, not only in Freeport, but away camps, both here and in New Hampshire, who are so generous to want to provide scholarships for kids, because the long-term benefit of kids going to camp has been recognized not only by these camps themselves, but also by private businesses and individuals. And this Camp Scholarship Committee has really worked very hard with the different schools and guidance counselors to identify kids who could really benefit from camp. And so sort of the legacy of Freeport Community Services is maybe the one thing that a family has done is gotten a camp scholarship through us. But boy, the benefits of that camp scholarship and of that camp experience for those kids is immeasurable.
Oh, here's another little secret about me. I know nothing about camping, okay? I basically started going to residential camp when I was 8. My last year, I was 24. So I really understand. In fact, I understand what the benefits of camping are. In fact, my career path was to take me into being a residential camp director. I was a day camp director for a while, but never made it to the residential piece. So unless people really understand the value of community that a camp builds, and, it puts this whole value system into a child. It's just absolutely amazing.
Right. And we're really lucky that, again, we have this great partnership with Freeport Housing Trust, which does the affordable housing in Freeport. In fact, we provide affordable housing in Freeport is one of the greatest number of housing stock for affordable units outside of Portland. So, again, you think that there's not these pockets here in Freeport, but again, we really work hard as a community to make sure people don't fall through the cracks. So they've done an amazing partnership with the Freeport Community Services Camp Scholarship Committee. Boy, you guys are so established. We have these kids in these units. Let's see if we can't make sure they get to camp. And so it's been this wonderful collaborative.
How many kids do you send through the program?
Last year we did about 97 with 111 camp scholarships.
Wow.
So it's pretty extensive. And again, that has been through extensive work with guidance counselors at the schools. Again, the RSU 5 schools have been wonderful in talking with us. And as well as now we're working with the social workers at the affordable housing units to really make sure kids, whether it's a local day camp is what they can expand their horizons to an overnight camp. What works best for that child.
Right.
It's pretty exciting.
Really good stuff. All right. So let's say we have 15 seconds left, and I'm the most significant philanthropist in the state of Maine. We just meet each other.
Well, hello.
That's what you're going to tell me?
Hi.
Why should I contribute to your organization?
Because when you support Freeport Community Services, that your dollar, that value, is going directly to the people in need. no doubt about it, because you not only do we have the metrics like every other nonprofit does to see that, for example, 111 camp scholarships per year, et cetera, but also when you come to Freeport Community Services, just like you did, David, when you walk through those doors, you know it's a place of dignity and respect, and we will show you where your dollar goes.
Well, that's great. And if someone wanted to make a gift or to contact you, how would they do that?
Call to the amazing Kim Hudak or myself at 207.
amazing Kim
Hudak, 865-3985. My extension is 204. Our website is fcsmaine.org. Also, my email is msachs@fcsmaine.org.
Oh, well, Melanie, thank you for being my guest this week. This
Thanks
was
so
really
much.
a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me,
It
David.
wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, was it?
It's not at all. I'll come back anytime.
Okay. Well, thank you, Melanie. And next week, we will have Susan Green.